Mission codename, Dark Zone. Region, Eastern Africa, border of Congo and Uganda. Date, June 14, 2028. Objective, neutralize a mercenary-controlled camp that oversees the illegal extraction and smuggling of rare earth metals. The night erupted before they even stepped into the operational zone. A muffled explosion tore through the horizon, its orange bloom rising like a wound against the jungle sky. The shockwave rolled across the canopy, rattling the leaves, making the mud under their boots quiver. Falcon, the commander of the six-man team Vector, froze in place and dropped to a crouch. His instincts screamed before his mind caught up. Something was wrong. Echo, confirm. Who just lit the fuse? His voice was flat, iron hard. The reply was static, a hiss of broken frequencies. Echo tapped at his /PRC 148 Mbita radio, chewing hard on his gum, brow furrowed under the lip of his helmet. No response. Someone's jamming. It's not environmental. This is deliberate. That meant only one thing, compromise. Someone knew their route, their timing, maybe even their objective. A betrayal. NVG's on. Down. Spread low. Falcon's tone cut through the dark like a blade. The team dropped into the muck, goggles flaring green as night vision tubes came alive. The jungle unfolded before them in shades of emerald and shadow, thick vines twisted across rotting stumps, trees groaned under the weight of decades of damp, and insects the size of a man's thumb swarmed the air. The scent was sharp, rotting vegetation and stagnant water, a suffocating perfume of the tropics. Falcon's eyes scanned the terrain. He had led men through Afghan deserts, Syrian ruins, Malian dunes. Nothing smelled like this place, alive and dead at the same time. Ahead lay the remnants of colonial mines, now taken by mercenary contractors who smuggled rare earth metals out of the jungle and into the veins of global industry. Those metals bought influence, built weapons, and fueled the quiet wars between superpowers. If Vector failed here, the flow would not stop, it would flood. Vector was 6 men, each sharpened by years of shadows. Falcon carried the weight of command like a scar. 12 years of missions, some buried under official silence, had carved away doubt. He trusted his 416 Hong Kong dollars as much as he trusted his own heartbeat. The rifle, fitted with an aimpoint red dot and a surefire suppressor, had been with him through desert storms and city sieges. At his hip rode a Glock, plain and ugly, but unflinching in its reliability. Echo, the radio operator, had the wiry restlessness of a man who lived between frequencies. Once a Navy comms specialist, he could pull signals out of static like ghosts from fog. He never went into battle without gum between his teeth. Tonight he carried an M4A1, EOTech holographic sight shimmering faintly under his NVG lenses. His lifeline was the bigger strapped across his vest, its antenna cutting the silhouette of his headgear. Grim, the sniper, was silence given shape. No one really knew how many men he had killed, no one asked. His scar chambered in 7.62 was his voice, a low rumble that spoke only when necessary. He adjusted his scope with surgical precision, as if the rifle were an extension of his spine. His Glock rested holstered, rarely touched. He had spoken no more than 20 words since insertion. Shaman was the medic, a man who had once saved lives in refugee camps before watching his own family buried under rubble. His faith had died there, replaced with something harder. He carried a SIG MCX Rattler in 300 blackout, compact enough for the swamp, deadly enough for close work. But his true burden was the pack on his back, tourniquets, morphine syrettes, chest seals. He knew the weight of men's lives more intimately than anyone else. Wolf was the sapper, the one who saw the world in wires and charges. Iraq, Syria, Somalia, every theater had left him more superstitious. He always went through doors first, claiming it drew misfortune away from the others. His 416 Hong Kong dollars was balanced with a suppressor, but his most trusted weapon was the folded drone on his pack, a modified DJI Matrix outfitted with reconnaissance optics and, when needed, an improvised explosive payload. Berkut was the heavy, a slab of muscle with the laugh of a man who had stared at death long enough to find it boring. Once a paratrooper, then a mercenary, now pulled back into official shadows, he carried the squad's weight of ammunition, his rifle configured for sustained bursts. He was the wall the others could fight behind. In his eyes, when battle started, there was no warmth, just the cold clarity of killing. Together, they were Vector. Their orders were simple on paper: infiltrate, confirm the presence of mercenaries, destroy their capability to smuggle ore, and extract. But the fire on the horizon and the broken comms told Falcon that nothing would be simple tonight. Wolf launched the drone, its low hum disappearing into the canopy. On the feed, shadows came alive in white heat, patrols moving, crates being carried, mercenaries repositioning with purpose. These were not ragged gunmen. Their sweeps were disciplined, arcs of fire overlapping, their gear a mix of NATO surplus and high-end imports. Professionals. They're pulling cargo fast, Echo muttered, gum clicking between his teeth. North side's hot, east perimeter layered. They're expecting us. Which means someone gave them our clock, Falcon growled. Berkut smirked without humor. Then we take the route no one sane touches. South flank. The swamp. The swamp was a nightmare even on maps. Waist-deep sludge, waterborne disease, sucking mud that could swallow a manhole. No patrols, no tripwires, because no one expected anyone to come through alive. Load check, Falcon ordered. Each man tapped his gear. Rifles checked, suppressors locked, optics aligned. NVGs clicked into place. Armor plates pressed into ribs. The ritual was muscle memory, but beneath it ran something deeper, the knowledge that they were walking into a fight already lost on paper. They moved. The swamp swallowed them, mud clinging to boots, water rising to thighs. Mosquitoes swarmed in clouds, feasting through gaps in fatigues. Every step was a battle against suction and fatigue. Yet they pressed forward, eyes scanning, rifles raised above the waterline. Hours later, they emerged on firmer ground, breath ragged, uniforms slick with filth. Grim raised his hand, spotting movement on the ridge. For mercenaries, sweeping arcs of rifles, their discipline evident even from a distance. Falcon signaled. Grim dropped into position, scope aligned, breath slowing. One suppressed shot cracked, and a mercenary folded silently into the dirt. 3 more shots, 3 more bodies. The ridge fell silent. They pushed forward. The camp loomed, corrugated steel structures lit by the weak glow of generators. Trucks lined the depot, engines idling, crates stacked like currency of war. Men moved with precision, loading, securing, preparing. This was not retreat. This was execution of a timetable. Falcon's gut tightened. Someone in higher command had leaked not just their approach, but the timing of the entire mission. Then the jungle lit up. A flare burst overhead, drowning the world in searing white. Gunfire erupted, disciplined, overlapping arcs shredding foliage and earth. Vector dove for cover, rounds snapping overhead. Contact front, multiple. Echo shouted, radio crackling under interference. Berkut rose like a shield, his rifle hammering long bursts, tracers carving lanes through the night. Wolf launched his drone, sending it streaking into a machine gun nest. It detonated in a thunderous bloom, fire lighting the tree line. Grim cursed for the first time anyone had heard, clutching a bleeding arm as Shaman dragged him behind cover, tourniquet already in his hand. Falcon crawled through mud, rounds sparking around him. Vector, suppress and push. South break. Now. The battle became chaos. Suppressors roared, tracers sliced the night, bodies dropped in silence and screams alike. Falcon's rifle burned hot, his heartbeat sinking with every controlled burst. Cordite choked the air, mixing with the swamp's rot. Then, through the comms, a voice spoke. Clear. Familiar. Using their own encrypted channel. You were expected, Falcon. The words froze him. Not just an ambush. A message. Someone from within their own command had orchestrated this. There was no time to dwell. Vector pushed through the southern flank, carving a path with fire and blood. They breached the outer camp, tearing through structures, scattering mercenaries. Wolf grabbed maps, Shaman yanked hard drives from a comm station, Berkut laid down suppressive bursts as Echo screamed for extraction across shattered bandwidth. The camp burned behind them. Crates detonated in chained eruptions, or shipments turned to ash. The jungle lit with fire, mirrored across the black water of the swamp as they fought their way out. Shaman hauled Grim, wounded but alive. Wolf staggered under the weight of intel packs. Berkut bellowed bursts of fire, cutting swathes through closing reinforcements. Echo's radio finally cracked with a single word of response from the distant command, "Abort." Falcon gritted his teeth, leading his men into the swamp once more, smoke and betrayal choking his lungs. They would survive, but the mission had already changed. Someone had sold them out. Someone with access to their route, their time, their codes. The camp lay in flames, but the real fire had only been lit. "This isn't over," Falcon whispered into the void as the jungle swallowed them whole. "We'll find the traitor. And when we do, this war won't stay in the shadows." And then there was only the sound of the swamp, the gunfire fading into the distance, and the green glow of their NVGs cutting through the darkness of a war no longer hidden.